I'm a learning coach and I've trained thousands of students and professionals all around the world. And I'm also actively working and training with Dr. Justin Sung, who's the leading voice in practical learning science with over 1.8 million subscribers on YouTube. In this video, I have a conversation with Bach, who is a professional that I've been working with and coaching for the last few months. We try using learning science to craft him a perfect system to deal with the demands of a new role, having to be catching up with a project that he has just been kind of plopped into the middle of, but then also doing proactive learning to make sure that he stays on top of a very competitive industry, especially with new technology and AI coming about.
I wanted to improve my learning skill related to my professional development. So I'm a data scientist, right? And then I've been in this field for 5 years, and I found myself struggling to keeping up with the volume and the amount of information and new technology that coming out every day related to the data science field. And so I wanted to have a system, an effective system to help me getting up to speed with it, stay updated with the technological development and the data science field. And then at that time, I also wanted to take my career to the next level. So I was on the market and looking for a better opportunity. And so I thought that was a right time for me to do something differently than I've done before. And so I got attracted to the ICANN study. And so I think I joined ICANN study back in March this year, 2025. And then I think we spoke like you say, July or something, like in summer, right? And a very good news that I wanted to share with you is that I landed a new role as a senior data scientist for an insurance company. So I'm very happy with it. I'm very, very
No,
happy.
no, you should be. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've been in this role I've joined them for 3 weeks now. And I'm very excited for this new role. And I have to say that, what I learned from ICANN study since March this year is definitely play a key part in 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 why how I landed this new role. So that's
No,
my
that's great.
update. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome to hear. That's really, really good. And I guess that's what we want to get into, right? I do want to understand more about this new role that you've been offered as well. And with this new exciting role, there's new exciting challenges too, I imagine. And with that, there's going to be new learning challenges and goals, etc. So let's start off with that question. What's the goal looking like?
What is the goal looking like for me? So so I have a goal in my mind. So back then when I joined ICANN study, my goal at that time was to land a new role, to take my career to the next level. I was able to achieve that goal, since then. And now my next goal is to earn a promotion within the next 12 months. So I wanted to, and for me, it's kind of like a litmus test. So back in March, my litmus test is landing a new job, landing a better opportunity. And I was able to achieve that. Like everything that I've done throughout the time, like I've done a lot of things. And studying and learning the skills from ICANN study was one of them. But now, my new litmus test is okay, getting a promotion, because it's kind of like, signifying that I've done things properly. I've done things better. I have a better and effective system in place to gain that promotion. And so it's involved many things in my mind. In order to get promotion, I have to perform well at work technically. So obviously, I need technical skills. I need to be able to develop, my data science skills further, and being able to help the team achieve the overall objective, right, and deliver the projects and the results. But at the same time, it also means that the other parties, I have to have the communication skills and the people business stakeholder skills, which is as much as important as the technical skills and the ability to deliver the results. That's what I learned in the hard way in my previous role. That I lack those kind of communication and soft skill and business business people, stakeholder kind of management skills. And so I wanted to be able to develop that as well in my new role. So that's kind of like the two parts related to my next goal there that I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's really good actually. I think you've delineated it very well. So it's those soft skills and those hard skills. So hard skills being like technical, soft skills being the communication skills, being able to speak to other people well, manage them well, etc. Okay, this is good. Let's get into it. It's only been 3 weeks since the new role, but have there been any challenges that have arisen or any challenges that you anticipate that are going to come?
Yeah. So there's one challenge that already starting to arise is that the amount of new information that I have to get up to speed with. So I joined the team right in the midst of the team is currently working on a project in Q4.
Yep.
And so I joined a little late, I would say, because already the project already kick starts. And within the past 3 weeks, it's especially the first two weeks, like it was all about onboarding.
Yeah,
It was all
exactly.
about onboarding. There's so many things. And then I was finally, like this past week was when I finally got access to some of the key technology and infrastructure and platforms related to work. And but I wouldn't say it's a wasted time, because during that period I also finish all of the required training as part of my onboarding.
Yep.
Getting to know the people, getting to know the new environment, getting to know the new process and everything. And I took the time to kind of like connecting with people, connecting with my teammates, connecting with people in the wider teams as well, just to build that connection and build that relationship first. Because I to me, like, that's important. Like, that's will lay the foundation for the soft skills that I talked about earlier. That is, it's super critical, to deliver impact and to generate influence and being able to gain that promotion 12 months from now. But that being said, the challenge right now is getting up to speed. That's the biggest challenge for me, to be able to help the team deliver the project in Q4.
Okay, that's really good. I think you've specified the challenge very well. And obviously, there's those other things that get in the way, but they're also really important. So you kind of have to do it. I mean, you have to onboard. Like, you can't just be like, hey guys, let me onboard after the next project is done, right? You have to onboard, right? Like, and you
Yeah.
have to connect with other people. I think that's very important. And
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think getting up to speed is going to be that precise problem. Let's talk about that then. Let's talk about how are you trying to tackle that problem of trying to get up to speed with being thrown into the middle of the project right now.
Yeah. Um, so my strategy so far is that I'm trying to engaging my teammates in terms of being proactive, to reaching out and book a call with them, or message them, or reaching out to them to ask things for things that I don't understand or I don't know about, and get myself unblocked as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing that I'll do is suffering in silence, or spending maybe 1 or 2 hours to figure out something that I could have asked my teammates about, and get the answer in 5 minutes or something like that. But at the same time, I also be conscious and be mindful of not taking too much of their time, because it seems to me that the team is moving a bit fast.
Yes.
in a sense that they wanted to get things done and moving the different pieces of the projects along the schedule, right? They have the work back schedule, and so it's just striking the balance. But I also wanted to, I and then so that's one thing, like I proactively engaging with the teammates
Mm.
and trying to get up to speed as much as possible while
Mhm.
being mindful and respectful at that time as well. And then secondly, I'm trying to read and absorb as much as possible. And right now, like I'm trying like insurance is a new domain knowledge for me too.
Yeah.
So it's quite I would say like I would say given that I had to get up to speed quickly, it's a steep learning curve for me now in this situation. So I'm trying to read and absorb as much as possible, and I'm trying to kind of like applying what I learned from I can study, even on my personal time or on weekends too, um, and taking notes. I haven't really got the chance to like doing mind map honestly because of
Mm.
other responsibilities, but um, the problem with that is that um, I feel like I have to kind of doing a read through and skimming through stuff just to wrap my head around and then being able to start contributing. So what I mean is that I don't have the luxury of sitting down and then you know doing a mind map or doing a detailed notes of a specific reading materials. Like I kind of need to read through things just to get an idea of it. It's almost like a pre-study
Mm-hmm.
sense, but I doing that pre-study and then I'm just so that to prime myself to be able to kind of jump in
Yep.
and taking on like one or two small tasks. So the challenge for me for next week is that I'm feeling like, and my team is actually really good. They actually allowing me the space and time to kind of like getting up to speed. I don't feel that pressure directly from them, but internally myself, like I feel like I should be able to kind of help the team with one or two tasks related to the project within the
Mm.
next 1 or 2 weeks. And so
Yeah.
I'm in the position that there's so many things to read and to absorb, and so I don't have the luxury to sit down and like properly study for one thing. I kind of having to scan through multiple things and almost like you can think of it like doing a quick pre-study for everything
Yes. Yep.
just to wrap my head around what's going on and different moving pieces, and then being able to jump in by next week or the next week to do like one or two small tasks related to the project. So that's kind of like where I am right now in my strategy. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. I've got two comments. So first one is I would actually agree with what you've listed so far. And as a professional, you have what we call an unstructured learning environment. So what that means is that unlike college or school, there's no lecture being like, "Hey, back, here's everything we need you to do as a, as a new team member. Here's specifically the software you're using. Here's specifically the gaps." You have to figure that out all by yourself whilst
Yeah.
having little time. So for your strategy here, you're talking about doing pre-studies all every now and then and not being able to do detailed notes. That is fine. There is
Mm,
no need for us to actually need to do detailed notes per se because we just don't have the time to do that.
mhm, mhm.
It's just bursts of time that you have potentially even before work, right? On the commute towards work, or even just a few minutes on a Saturday or Sunday. You don't want to be spending hours doing notes, right? That's not the goal.
Yeah.
And ideally, you'd also be able to do it within the period that you have within work. So if there's like a 5 minute slot, maybe a meeting that you have before manage with the manager, you're able to just do a quick organization of thoughts to understand what you want to talk about. So that strategy is okay. We're already working with limited time. There's no expectation that we can increase that time per se. It's more so about the time that we are spending, like these small slots of time that you have. How can
Mhm.
we get more out of it? How can we get more efficient? That's the angle that I always take at it. And this is the angle that I take for any learner that I work with. Before I consider increasing time, it's more so what are you doing in that time? And how can we just increase the output that we get in that same amount of time? That's a
Yeah.
huge win that we can all make. So that's the first comment. I
Yeah.
guess the second comment is this strategy sounds good at a high level, and I want to get some comments. Have you been able to try it out? And if so, how has it been?
So the strategy that I just described to you, right?
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
So I think at high level, there's two aspects of it, like reaching out to team member because
Mm.
they the resource that help me save time, But obviously, I cannot come to them too many times.
Yeah, that's right.
So I have to be mindful about it. Secondly, is doing those pre-study and getting a broad view of everything.
Yes.
Um, so far, I think I haven't really done much of that. Like I would say, like this past week, I've done a little bit of that. Like the first 2 weeks, it was all about onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
But this past week was when um, and then the other strategy is I actually in the meetings I'm trying to deliver some kind of values a little bit, even though I don't have the full context. Like if
Mm.
there's a discussion about something that I feel like, okay, I can bring my knowledge or my skill or my intuition from the previous job that I had, I'll chime in just so that I just don't stay silent all the time,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
have to kind of engage in the conversation and discussion.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and then, maybe sometimes like I bring up an idea and the whole team say, no, that's not a good idea. They reject it, but it's okay. Like, in my mind,
That's
like, I,
still a win. Yeah, that
yeah,
is still a
I
win,
still
right?
win. Like
Like,
in my mind, I still win because I need to engage. I need to like, showing that like, I'm engaging.
yeah.
So far it's going, I would say, what I've done so far is good, but I think I could do better
Okay.
if
Yeah.
if
All
I
right.
can if I can like condense like getting up to speed a little bit faster.
A little bit
I
faster, right?
think that, and then I have to do to make myself feel comfortable is within the next 1 or 2 weeks I'll be able to kind of like tackle one small task related to the project.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure, definitely. So this is really good. I would like to quickly just demonstrate a quick flow that I think could be quite useful for you. I've also taught this flow to other professionals who find themselves to be in a situation where there's lots of projects, so software engineers, etc. This approach is similar to project-based learning. That's what they talk about in like learning science, but it's not the way that I'm about to talk about it. They definitely don't talk about it like this. So essentially, what's happening right now is we have a project. We'll just have this project as like this pink star here. So maybe you can see my screen.
Uh-huh.
We've got this project here, and the project in itself has like things that need to be true in order for it to exist. There's certain KPIs that say that the project has been delivered very well. If it's like a software development that we're doing, then it's like, cool, we're going to test all these bugs. If it's insurance, we might need to test its liability with like lawyers, but for that we need to collate all the data first and then send it to the lawyers, for example. There's so many things that can happen here, but essentially something that's very useful for anyone who's getting onboarded, especially this is what I teach to a few interns, because interns are usually in this similar position as you. Obviously, you're not an intern, but interns are usually, what happens is that because they do their rotation at the summer break, they kind of just get chucked into the last project of the year. So I feel like we're in a similar position situationally, from a
Mm-hmm.
learning perspective, but definitely not from like an experience perspective, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what's happening here for them, what actually is very useful is for them to, number one, obviously try getting an understanding of the project itself. It's really important to make sure that they understand what all the moving parts are, what teams are involved, what small subtasks need to be done, what overall objectives need to be met, what objectives they are responsible for, and the objectives they are not responsible for. So that level of clarity is very important, and you're getting through these through the conversations that you're having with your colleagues, right? But
Mm-hmm.
a second process that's really important as well is of the actual project that we are doing. Once you have organized it and you thought about it in a certain way, it's also about identifying the parts that are relevant to you, but also the parts that are a question mark. So, what do I mean by this? This means being able to articulate your questions or your moments of uncertainty with your team. So, a quick example is a really bad question to ask a colleague is, "What is this project about?" That is a horrible question to ask. You definitely don't want to be asking that question, right? And I'm sure you're aware. But
Uh-huh.
what you would want to do is you'd want to tell your colleague, "Hey, here's how I'm thinking about the project. Am I thinking about it correctly? Is this the way to do it? You're bringing in your own thoughts and your own organization of information before you present it to colleagues, etc., and you get some more process and more feedback on that. We call that the hypercorrective effect. So instead of speaking to a colleague with no understanding at all, you try generating your own understanding of what the project could be based on prior knowledge, based on what you've read, based on what you quickly just figured out, and then you take it through. So this is the actual process. I'm about to talk about a technique you can use. It's going to be related to mind maps, and we're going to make a system that works for you for sure. But
Mhm.
any thoughts on this? Does this kind of align with what you've been thinking about? Any new ways of thinking about information here?
No, I think that's great. I think broadly what you just mentioned there is
Mm.
there's two parts, right? One is trying to understand the projects. So that's what I've trying to do is to
Yes.
kind of pre-study everything and
Yes.
then wrap my head around and just at the high level understand what are the moving pieces, what I need to be done, what's the objective, what are the tasks that need to be done and what I can, do or cannot do. And then
Mm-hmm.
second is like, paths that are relevant and paths that are question mark. So I think like the key point here is to be able to kind of, when I unsure about something, like I should like spend some time to think about it, to kind of
Yeah.
research it, and give some thought about it before asking questions, right? Instead of like just going to them and ask question that I haven't given thought about. Yeah.
That's right, precisely. And it's more of a simple rule, but it can take you very far if you consistently apply that rule. Now, there is something that I want to touch upon, which I think is going to be more important for you. A key goal that we have together is we just really want to increase the speed at which we're about to be able to learn this project, but also
Mhm.
find these gaps as well. And that's
Mhm.
very important. And something here is that our speed at which we're able to learn the information, our brain being able to process that, it is dependent on our ability to, again, think about the information in a certain way. And we call that encoding, right? So encoding means if we have all this documentation related to the projects, and you've got lots of documentation, you've got lots of videos, you've got lots of instruction manuals, you've maybe got some company guidelines, there's all these resources that you're reading, and essentially, what you're trying to do is you're trying to put it into your brain. This is a really bad drawing of a brain, but you get what I mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And essentially, what happens for many people is that they forget the information really well. They're really good at forgetting information. So much so they could enter a competition and they could probably win the amount that they forget, right? I was definitely one of those people there. And what this process is, this is encoding. This is a very simply taking information from your sensory memory into your long-term memory so you can use it and so your brain can actually do lots of good things with it. And the
Mhm.
challenge that we have here is that we're trying to increase our encoding with the same amount of time. We actually don't have that much time. And one of the ways that you can directly influence your encoding is the precise note-taking strategy that you use. And so this is the question that I want to ask you. You're already doing a pre-study in some way, shape, or form, and you're already organizing your thoughts in some way. So the question here is, how are you taking your notes right now?
Yeah, so right now, for things, I would say like prior to my work, like when I taking notes, when I learn things during the interview and getting a job, like I use mind map a lot, but right now I don't. I just don't have time. So
Yeah.
right now, the way that I doing it, um, and the thing is, I usually use one. Sorry. I use Notion. Yeah, I use Notion, and then I use concept for mind map, right? And then I use Notion for taking notes, but because of the way that my work laptop is set up, I don't have access to them, and so I can't have access to them actually. And so I use OneNote, Microsoft OneNote.
Mm.
Um, in some way, I would say it's almost very similar to Notion. Um, it's slightly different in terms of functionality, but it's quite similar. So I
Hmm.
can create in different tabs, different subtab and
Yes.
something like that,
That's
and then the note is a little bit free floating, and so I just kind of tapping notes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
in general, like, and I indented when I wanted to take additional sub notes related to that main idea. And then I kind of organizing the tabs into like domain knowledge, anything related to insurance. And then for the tab that all related to the project itself. And so right now that's how I organize it. And then I have like a tab that I organize all of my meetings, like daily scrum, weekly touch,
Yeah.
and my manager. So anything related to meetings and calls, I put it in there. But if there are things that related to insurance itself, then I put it into. So it's like three broad group or categories of knowledge that I group them right now. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good. So, this is really, really good. There's a few rules that I want to set before I ask you some more specific questions.
Mhm.
As a general rule, when it comes to learning, what's very useful? Okay, just really quickly before I do that, the way that you're using OneNote here is actually really good. So this is not a problem. We actually want to keep this process
Mhm.
because, again, as you've mentioned there, there's lots of links that your managers might be sending. There's a review that you're doing. There's potentially an expectation that you need to use OneNote as well. So this is not a problem. We actually want to continue using OneNote. So
Mhm.
I'm about to give you some suggestions, but this is not in the form of us getting rid of OneNote. OneNote is still useful for this situation here.
Mhm.
What we want to remember though is that when it comes to notes, at the end of the day, our notes are an organization of our thoughts. And as you might have also learned in the program and you've learned through prior exposure, when it comes to a nonlinear note-taking process, something like mind maps, the reason it's so powerful is because the way that you organize your thoughts and information and the way that it triggers a certain type of thinking in your brain, you need to organize and think and like group it and chunk it together and relate it. That leads to really high quality learning. And we know that level of learning leads to then better retention and depth than something like linear notes, where, for example, for a one note, when you create tabs, there's a lot of processing that you have to do. When you type in notes, there's not a lot of deep thinking that you have to do. So from a
Mhm.
note taking perspective, I'm sure you and I were both aware that a non-linear perspective, it not potentially, but it does actually lead to better learning as a
Mhm.
whole compared to something like typing notes all the time.
Yeah.
But something that you did mention, this is a critical point, it's because of time, we've actually switched over to Notion. So that's actually something I want to know a bit more about. Tell me about that. Is it because my maps take too long? Is it because we're too slow on it? We need to learn the information faster. What's the precise decision behind that?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't switch from concept, which is mind map, to Notion.
Mm,
Like outside of work, like outside of my current job,
yeah,
previously, like when I was working toward my goal of getting a new job, I
yeah,
was studying, I was preparing for interview. I have to develop my interview skill and everything, and learning from I can study.
yeah.
All of that, like I use a combination of concepts for mind
Yes.
map and Notion for taking notes.
Okay.
Um, it's Notion is more like my like when I need to store, so like it store everything, almost
Like a
everything.
second brain. Yeah.
Yeah. um for me it's really like I even store like things that I like when I have like networking events or meeting or coffee chats with other professional. I even like type notes in there too, so
Mm.
it's almost like
Yes. Yes. That's
store
good.
everything. It's my cabinet. And then concept, when I use it, is when I need to learn something deeply, like when I need like to really understand something, like
Hmm.
when I preparing for interview, right? I'm using my map with concepts.
Yeah.
um but like right now in my current job, I don't have access to both those two because the company prohibit using it within the current technology that they
Yes.
use.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they only have like OneNote, Microsoft OneNote.
I see.
And it's like when I just started using OneNote within the
Yes.
past 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's really good. So it seems like if you had access to a mind mapping form, we would use it. Like, am I
I would
correct?
I would definitely use it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was actually speaking to someone who was in a very similar position last time. So they're actually a software developer, and for them, this is actually a really quick side tangent. They were doing a mind map one day, and they even had like 100% retention on the mind map as well. So it was really good. and they were on their iPad, but their bosses saw, and their bosses thought that they weren't actually learning because they're doing this mind map. And their
Mm.
bosses are quite old fashioned. And so they actually well, not confiscate, but they banned using iPads in meeting rooms because they thought that he wasn't paying attention. So
Yeah.
that was a bit of a shock for him. And then I told him, is it possible for you to have a piece of paper like a book, like a physical book where you can do some nonlinear note taking on? And he said, yes, that is possible. So based on that conversation, would that be possible for you? You've got your laptop, but then you've also got like a book that you can do physical written notes
Yeah.
on and mind maps on.
Yeah. It's funny because when you brought it up, like I did think about that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I have a notebook that I bring with me, and funny thing is um there was a conference, data conference internally within the company.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then when I went to that conference, there was like really good talks, and then
Yep.
I I was sitting in a room, and I didn't want it to bring up my laptop, OneNote, because it's too bulky. And so I pulled up my notebook, and I actually, drawing like my map on what I'm
Yes.
listening to. And it was really, helpful.
Yep.
And yeah, I thought about it, but I was like, but I really wanted to have everything that I can, digital, that I can like access easily. But I think, now that you mention it, I'll consider. I probably would try it out, like using a notebook, like a
Yeah.
physical book, and then taking note and then doing mind map with
Yeah.
that. Because I think, you can draw, write anything on a notebook, and nobody can say anything.
Because it's a notebook, right? On that note, like this goes back to the professional that I was speaking to, the software developer. What he did, it was pretty good. I was actually going to suggest this as the next step. You can then take a picture of those physical notes that you do, and OneNote
Oh,
is actually a really good place to put this. I would say this is going to be a really good system that you can use here. So
yeah,
you've got your physical notebooks now, and you're doing your quick maps on it. You're doing your organization of thoughts, you're chunking information. It makes you think about the information deeper. And if
yeah,
possible, if you've got a phone, you can quickly take a photo of it. And then what this software developer did is that he had it there, and that was a really good killer system because now he had
mm,
this nonlinear organization, but then he also had these keywords there. Would that be possible? Is that something you'd be able to do?
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. Yes, I think I definitely will be able to do that. Yes.
I think that will help a lot because then we get the benefits of trying to at least do this level of nonlinear note taking so we can improve that
Mhm.
encoding ability, just have deeper processing
Yeah.
and more active learning. But then we get to document it onto OneDrive as well. So that's
Yeah.
something we can certainly do.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think I have to figure it out how to easily transfer the photo
Mm.
to OneNote. But maybe it's through, like, if worst case scenario, I can just like, I don't I don't know if I can log into my personal Gmail, but
Mhm.
I'll try. I'm still new to the new system, but let me let
Yeah.
me play around to see what allow and what not allow.
I remember I did this in high school, so I don't know if it's possible anymore. But when I had OneNote, I also had it on my laptop. And what would happen is this is a really clunky method. I would show my mind map, so pretend this is my mind map, and
Uh,
I'd actually take a picture on the webcam.
oh yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
And then what I would do is I would then put that picture into OneNote because I
Yeah.
wasn't able to use my phone in class. My teacher was very strict. She'd be
Hmm.
like, "No, like you cannot use your phone." So I made a way to get around it. So
Uh,
maybe that's a very low friction way. The quality is not great, but you can still see the notes
yeah.
from what I remember. So then
Yeah.
you get the benefits of two. Yep.
Okay. No, that's awesome. That's perfect. Yes. Yeah. I
Cool. No, I'd
definitely
be
will try it out for sure. Yeah.
no, try it out. I think that would be very useful for you to do. And
Hmm.
yeah, I'd love to see how that goes. But yeah, any further questions on this before maybe I move into your actual mind mapping technique itself?
No, I think I'm good. Up until now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about so cool. Now we've been able to potentially develop like an avenue for us to use a bit of mind mapping and non-linear note taking at work. I
Hmm.
want to know more about your process. So let's say you're doing some learning at work. Like
Hmm.
what are the blocks of time that you usually get, and how long are they for you to quickly burst and take notes?
Okay, so what block of time that do I have
Yeah.
before I have to kind of start taking notes?
Yeah, like I guess how much time do you even get to take notes on the job?
Okay. Let's see. I think I have the opportunity to take notes quite extensively.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that it's not too hectic, it's not too fast paced, I would say.
Yep.
And I'm not like right now I'm not like meeting back to back kind of thing. I do have my time to kind of reading materials and taking notes.
Yeah.
Um, and so I do have flexibility in terms of spending time and taking notes. Yes.
Okay, that's really
Yeah.
good. In that case, I don't think there's a lot of discussion here. I might quickly run down the process that you can continue to use. That's going to be quite useful for you.
Hmm.
And I'd love to get some of your thoughts here. I'll just go really quickly with describing what this would look like. So, for you, now that we've got access to this mind mapping tool that we'll try making the most out of, again, give yourself for this moment to be messy. You can definitely give yourself the permission to be messy, and you should expect it will be messy. It's going
Yeah.
to be all these arrows going all over the place. That's going to be your first attempt, and then we're going to clean it up. And it's like cleaning up that leads to good learning. So what we're doing here is first we're gathering our resources. So for you, this is going to be potentially again like documentation, company rules and guidelines, and maybe some readings that you've all gotten from
Hmm.
your seniors or some of the managers, some colleagues that you might have. And resources also in the context of unstructured learning environments, they are meetings as well. And even like Slack, if you're on Slack or Teams, like the conversation that you have there, those are technically also resources. And
Yes.
what we're then doing with these resources is we're trying to collect keywords specifically, and then we're connecting them together. Here's the second step, because it's through that connection do you start to make sense and make meaning of what the project is about. So this project, like, is it targeting like a specific part of insurance? Is it like vehicle insurance? Is it life insurance, for example? And dependent on the type of insurance it's targeting, does that then influence the way that we need to manage data? So if it's going to be life insurance, now there's going to be lots of finances that we need to draw up and lots of age and addresses potentially. But if it's vehicle insurance, now it's about getting information about cars, etc. There's like a different type of flow that you can do there. You're connecting all that information and you're the expert, so you'll know where everything fits. And then
Yeah.
once you've connected all of that, again, we're letting it being messy. So it's going to be super, super messy. We're then
Mhm.
trying to group the information, right? We call this chunking as well. So we want to simplify it so it's not just all crazy. And then finally, there's these last two steps that I want to talk about. This one here is to clean up. You won't always get to clean up, but you still want to prioritize a cleanup. And this fifth step here is going to be what I just really simply call this highlighting.
Mm.
And like it's not a super crazy technique, but essentially once you have a map, it's actually very useful to then highlight certain parts that A, you're either uncertain about, or B, could add value to a meeting that you have that's coming up. So
Mm.
now you can see we're not necessarily being opportunistic with it. I used to do this all the time where we'd have like company wide meetings. I would just jump into the meeting and I would just rely on luck or my brain to just my fluid intelligence to like figure something out.
Yeah.
But anytime I have a really important meeting now, I just take the time to do a quick mind map of like this process, collect keywords, connect them, group them, clean them up, and highlight two parts. Parts where I believe I can add value. So it's a value add, and if anyone had a question about it, I'd be able to answer it. But then parts that I have questions about. So it's parts that I feel like it's not that I wouldn't be able to add value, but it's more so it's still unclear for me. It's cloudy for me. And practically what I would do is I would just have like two colors. I'd have pink for value, and then I'd usually have orange for questions that I have that I don't know the answer to. And this is very useful because maybe I don't know if you experience this a lot, but at the end of really long meetings, there might be, the person that does the meeting. Does anyone have any questions? And then everyone is silent. everyone is everyone is looking at one another. But if anything, like something that we have in our team is that questions are indicative of high quality learning. And it also indicates that you have buy-in and that you care about the actual project that we're talking about. So basically, we used to have the problem where people wouldn't want to ask any questions, but thankfully we actually have the opposite problem. There's too many questions and we always need to like go overtime a little bit more. But we would rather that. We would rather go overtime just a bit more just to make sure
Mhm.
that everyone's on the same page, as opposed to having to spend weeks with like this huge underlying assumption and no one has raised their hands to ask a question
Yeah,
at all. I'm sure you could resonate with this, and it kind of links with performance as well. This goes back into being there for the team. I spoke for a while, but
yeah,
any thoughts on this general process that you would use?
yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. That's really helpful. So in general, like 5 step: gathering resources, collecting the keyword and connecting them, grouping the information, chunking them, cleaning up and highlighting. So all of that, like those are the 5 steps that you suggested for generating the mind map.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask about the cleanup one.
Mm-mm.
So what does that exactly mean?
Okay, that's really good. So just text as well. This is something that we'll be able to do in an unstructured environment. So if you got 10 minutes before a meeting, 15 minutes before a meeting, that's what you would do. What the cleanup means here is inevitably, I would definitely expect this to be the case. When you are connecting a lot of these keywords together, what's
Mhm.
going to happen is that it's going to be very messy. It's just like 100%, because there's so many thoughts you have. You might be thinking about keyword A and then keyword B and then keyword C. And you might say keyword A leads into B, but then wait, A also can lead into C, but then C kind of goes back into A. And then there's
Mhm.
also like this new like law that came out, or this new legislation, like, or this new product that came out as well. And it relates to this as well. And so what's happening to my map goes all over the place, because all of these relationships and all of these links are being made on your mind map. And essentially what the cleanup means here, it means to prioritize information over one another, what might be more relevant than one another. So I can do a quick demonstration of this from like a more visual perspective. Let's say what's like a meeting that you would have usually for the project? Any like theme of the meeting?
Yeah, so we'll have like a daily scrum, and then every 2 weeks we'll have like a sprint,
Yeah.
planning the next 2 weeks.
Hmm.
I happen to be the scrum master. I volunteered to be the scrum master for the next two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's those are kind of like the meetings there, and then the theme of it is we kind of like looking at the work back schedule, and then there's like project management ticket system. And so
Okay.
every task is broken down into like they have like what they call epic story and then
That's right.
tasks like
That's
that.
right.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
everyone have an assigned story or task.
Yeah.
So that's for the daily scrum, and then for the sprint, it's kind of planning those kind of things out within the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So usually what you're going to happen is that people given an update on daily scrum, what they work
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
yesterday, what challenges or what they're going to plan to do
That's right.
today or tomorrow, and so on, and then get unblocked and then aligned on some of the key items, or whether we need to book another call and take it offline from, well,
Mm.
not offline, but like taking off from the daily scrum and then following through with those additional details and align on it
Okay.
further. Yeah.
That's really good. All right. That gives me an idea. This might be useful. So let's say, for example, you end up being the person that's leading the Scrum Master. And what happens here is that you try doing this really quick mind map, and you've got all these keywords, and you are then relating all of them together. Here we go. You're seeing all these relationships. You're seeing how everything links. And in green, this is your own project. This is the thing that you own. But we would argue that as a project manager, you need to have like a good awareness of what's happening in the business overall. And so you might say, oh, but then this part of the project leads into this project, but then there's also this other project that leads into this one, and then there's also this project that needs to happen before we even do R1. So you can see the mind map's going to get chaotic. But then what cleanup means here, you want to prioritize based on your use case. So for the meeting that's upcoming or for the conversation that you're about to have, what is the best organization of information for that meeting and your role of that meeting? So especially in the context of a project management context, you would need to have a good understanding of the moving parts of the business. So when you clean up this map, it's probably going to be trying to connect these pieces, these broader pieces together and trying to make them more systematic. And so it's one leads into two, leads into three. And that's a really clean flow because this is project one, this is project two, this is project three, and then we can deliver. And you know this flow and you've prioritized that overview. But if you are someone who wasn't like a scrum master, if you're just purely just data scientist, just purely just everything, you will prioritize the depth. There's no need for you to have a good understanding of what's going on in three, what's going on in two, because your role is just that project in itself. And
Mm,
you just need to be really good at that project. So
mm,
this is what cleanup means. For the use case that you have coming up, how does
yeah.
it make sense to organize the information and how can you add the most value into it? Does that answer the question from that perspective?
Yeah, totally. I think I get a good understanding now that you explained that further. So would you say that for the cleanup, so like I'm trying to see like all of these 5 steps, do they? I think they would happen like um they wouldn't necessarily happen sequentially. Like they would
Perfect.
like
Yeah.
I would like jump back and forth between
Yes, you
one,
would. Yep.
2, 3, and then back to 1, 5, 4, something like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
then like even like you say the cleanup happened before like 5 or 10 minutes before meetings. Like I would
Mhm.
like say maybe before a meeting, five to
Mm.
10 minutes, I review my notes, all of the things that I gather and group and something like that, and then kind of join relevant things for that specific meeting so that it's the specific use case for that meeting kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So there's actually there's a nuance here. So yes, you are right in that learning is what we call recursive. So what that means, it's chaotic. We're starting with this, we're going there, and we're kind of going back and forth. Our brain is crazy. It's going all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And the 5 steps that I've listed here, this is generally the order that you want to follow, especially for an efficiency context. I'll explain why. For example, when it comes to grouping, three, what happens for many people is that they might actually try immediately grouping the information without connecting the information to begin with. The
Mm,
reason this can be a problem is because what they're doing now is they're bypassing that process of really trying to think about how information relates together and then create their own groups. So what ends up happening is that they use their groups that have been represented in the information. So you've already heard about this. The best thing that you can do from a learning context is trying to construct those groups yourself. Construct groups that make sense for you. And yeah, you might need to slightly tweak it how it is, but that leads to greater active learning because you are literally taking ownership of what that information looks like.
mhm,
And that leads to deeper retention and mastery of the content. But if you skip two because you go to three, you
mm,
bypass that grouping process, that chunking process. It
yeah,
looks like there's an illusion of groups on your mind map, but your
yeah.
brain didn't do any work. So this is why learning how to learn is so complicated. Your notes could look really good, but
Okay.
all the learning happens in your brain. So I get this happening a lot. Some people have really good looking mind maps, and I
Mm,
ask them like, how useful is it? They said, oh, I don't remember any of it. And it's at that point, it's like, what's the point? So you can see here, even though learning is recursive, we would still want to prioritize an order. For example, highlighting as well. I can understand that people would probably want to highlight at one and then move to five, or sorry, highlight at one so they can prioritize their list and then move to three, four. But it actually makes more sense to highlight towards the end because now you've given your brain that opportunity to just diffuse and think about as many relationships as possible and
mm,
then you highlight. But if you highlight first, what happens is you tend to shut yourself down from exploring other avenues and other relationships that
mm,
could have been really important. So again, you can see that although yes, it is going to be somewhat recursive every now and then, this
yeah.
is the general flow that you want to prioritize
Got
from that learning perspective.
No, totally. Thanks for sharing that. Like, I think, yeah, we don't want it to jump around and recursive too much. I
Yeah.
think it's only necessary, like, those steps, it should follow that so that is following a logical a flow
Hmm.
to optimize learning, right? And then now and then, maybe like after I already kind of like let's say I already get to from 1 to 5, and then maybe when I review it, I was like, oh, maybe I should have grouped this slightly different, and then I can go back to 2 or 3 to kind of
Yes, precisely. Yeah.
review them, revise them, grouping them differently so that it make more sense, right?
Yeah.
But it's happened occasionally after I already kind of going through one flow or one round kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely, exactly. That's why our brains are powerful. So you got it right, exactly. So you'd have to like try going through that process once, and then once you finished it, you might go back to 4, you might go back to 3, and you might be like, no, I need to go back to 1, I need to go back to 5. It's a very
Yeah.
chaotic process. Like our brains just do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
As long as that learning is happening in your brain, and the way that you want to cue that is, am I investing mental effort? Does this feel challenging? And if I had to explain this, or if I had to quickly teach it, what would I do? A really easy way, especially because we're in an unstructured environment, this is awesome. What we can do is we can actually just take these mind maps into the meetings that we have, and we can just see how much did that aid us in that meeting. Were we able to add value based on what we mapped? Did this map, were we able to add more information onto the map during the meeting? If the
Mhm.
answer is yes, it signals that the mind map was useful, that organization was useful. If the answer is no, well, this is another problem, because now there's a discrepancy between what you think is useful before the meeting versus what was actually useful in the meeting. And so you would reflect, like, what caused that discrepancy? Was it because of my technique? Most of the times it is a technique. Was it because my mind map was too broad? Was it because I just totally missed the meeting agenda? Like, I just didn't know what's
Mhm.
going on. Was it impossible to prepare for this meeting? Was this like a new client that came on and they didn't give us any information? So there's many situations in which can cause a discrepancy. A discrepancy is not a bad thing. It does not signal poor technique per se, but it could signal poor technique. And it is good to always assume that it is poor technique. So you try taking a look at your technique and improving it.
Mhm. Got it. So testing out whether the mind map is helpful. What I've done is helpful for the meetings or for the project or something like that for a deliverable, right? If yes, it's working. If it's not, then remember to do a reflection and identify what's the gaps, what the discrepancy, and trying, like, I think reflection is important anyway, in kind of like any kind of learning environment. So identifying the gap and trying to refine it to do it better next time.
Precisely, right? Like we call that precise process self-regulation, and that's a very big thing. It's a very big thing in the learning how to learn space and education, where what's happening is that you are taking ownership of your progress. So you are setting goals, you are then monitoring your progress, and you're adjusting your techniques based on that progress. So that process of doing a quick reflection, this could be a mental reflection, maybe on your Notion as well. You've taken a screenshot of your mind map or a picture of your mind map, and then at the bottom you do like some quick linear just brain dump of what went wrong, what went well, etc., what you think you can do better on this mind map. And
Mhm.
that process becomes, it's a very nice interconnected system that you have.
Yeah, very cool. One questions I wanted to clarify is that when I'm
Mm.
looking at step 2 and 3, they seems to be quite similar. Can you help me differentiate them a little better? Like number 2,
Yep.
collecting keywords and connecting them together, making a meanings out of them. And then 3 is grouping the information and chunking them.
Mhm.
Like, what's the main difference between the two there? Because it sounds a little similar to each other.
That's good. Yeah. So when it comes to connecting the information, this is about just prioritizing the quantity of how information could link. So again, just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to be using um, basic words. Like we'll use some words from learning science. So here's cognitive load might be one keyword, brain might be another keyword, learning might be another keyword. Do you want to give me some more keywords?
Brain learning, cognitive, I say reflection, self-regulation,
Yep.
retrieval,
Yep.
space repetition,
Yep.
flashcards, pre-study. Yeah, so I would say, yeah. Mhm.
Really good. This is great. You're good at this. Okay, so let's do this. So we're going to do that connecting process together, right? So we're going to do step 2. I'm going to do this in this gray color here. So again, step 2 is just about really trying to think about the direction of information and how the concepts themselves relate. So if you just take a look here, cognitive load, where might I put this? I might say the brain is what experiences cognitive load. So that's a relationship there. And I've decided that the brain leads into cognitive load. For you, as a learner, you might say, no, I disagree. It's cognitive load that leads into the brain. You could say that. But
Mm-hmm.
I, as a learner, I'm saying, okay, this is the first relationship I'm seeing. Brain leads into cognitive load. What else? Cognitive load is a signal for learning. So I'm going to add that to learning. I would say there's good learning. Maybe there's a quick relationship. There's bad learning here too. That's like another relationship. I'm able to add more keywords. And
Mm-hmm.
note taking, the reason we do note taking is to learn the information. We also have reflection. That's to get better. I guess that relates to self regulation. So reflection is a mechanism in which people can access self regulation. That's another relationship you can see there. And then retrieval is okay, once you've taken notes and once you've learned, you want to make sure that you don't forget what you learned. So learn is what leads into retrieval. That's what I've done there as well. And spaced repetition and flashcards, these are all forms of retrieval. And learning pre-study is something that happens before learning. So I've done all these relationships, and now I can. So that's precisely step two. We've just connected all those informations together. We've
Yeah.
just tried getting an understanding. In your situation here, if you're going to be reading through manuals, it's getting a quick understanding of all the keywords. It might be going to Claude or ChatGPT, just quickly asking them for the definition. The point is you want to get a quick understanding and you want to rely just on your intuition as well. If there's a keyword that I don't know here, so there might be a keyword, for example, latent learning.
Mm-hmm.
I know what this concept, but let's pretend I don't know what it is. And
Yeah.
then I see that I'm like, what could that be? And then there might be another keyword as well. There might be like symptomatic response. I have no idea what this is. It's like, what could this be? Maybe latent learning. Maybe it relates to cognitive load because latent, I kind of know it means inner. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it could relate to learning. Maybe it relates to retrieval. I have no idea. So it's getting really messy, but I'm
Uh,
thinking about those. And then symptomatic response. Maybe that's cognitive load. Like, I don't know. Does that even connect? So again, I'm just connecting all that information. You can see it's getting really messy. But now this is the third group. This is the third process. This is the grouping part. Grouping is now based on all these relationships that we found. What are the unique different ways we can group it? So one way that I'm seeing it, which is a very simple way, it's actually a flow. So you can see there's learning as the first process. Oh, actually, pre-study as the first process,
mm-hmm.
and then that's one group, and then learning as another process, that's the second group. And under learning there's quite a few things that I had like note taking, etc. And then the third process was retrieval, and there's a few things under retrieval. And so this is what my groups might look like. First group is pre-study. That's the broad group that I have, and then I connect this group to learning.
Okay.
And under learning, remember there's a few relationships that exist under learning, right? We had note taking there,
Yeah.
we had cognitive load here as well,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then we had a little bit of, I think there was one more here. We had good, bad learning, so we could just put good, bad there. And then we also had latent learning, so maybe that's what latent is. And latent connected maybe with cognitive load, so you can see that. And then we had our third group, which was to then have retrieval. So, and then what you see there is we've got spaced repetition there, we've got flashcards, and then we've got, was there anything else here? I think there was one more thing. Um, Retrievals. Okay. And then there was self-regulation as well. So that's like a fourth group,
Reflection and
right?
self-regulation. Yeah.
There you go. So where does this go? So maybe you might say that maybe that's the fourth group and that's applied. You should do self-regulation anytime you're learning. So you might even just do that type of reflection there. That's how I think they relate. Anytime you're learning, you should do it. But maybe as a unique learner, you might say, no, self-regulation should only be applied after retrieval. Maybe that's how you connect those groups. But I say, no. Self-regulation should be applied everywhere. So you can see like this is one form of grouping the information. There's another form. I'll teach you. This is another way of grouping the information. This is why it's so powerful. We might say that there is, what's a good way of doing this? Effective might be one group, and then ineffective might be another group.
Mm-hmm.
And under effective, I'm going to put many things, but under ineffective, I might put flashcards.
Mm.
And then under ineffective, I might put spaced repetition, but then I might say it can be effective sometimes if used correctly. But just most people use these wrong. So that's why I say ineffective here. Under
Uh,
effective, I've got self-regulation
okay.
and then pre-study. I'll just be quick. And then under ineffective, I might have linear notes.
Yeah, I
You can
see.
see this is a different grouping. It's the same information, roughly, but
Mm,
this is one version of it. This is the second version of it. In my
yeah,
opinion, I would probably go for this version just because it's a lot better from a flow perspective. But if I had to do a presentation on effective learning techniques versus
yeah.
ineffective, this is where it makes sense,
Oh,
right?
I see. I see.
Yeah,
It's a different perspective, different angles of looking at the same information,
that's right. Yeah,
in relevance to the context of like meetings or presentation or what we're trying to do or discuss about. I
yeah,
see.
yeah, that's right.
Wow,
Um,
that's very powerful.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So you can see it's a different permutation of the same information.
Mm,
And it's not it's going to be really hard for me to represent this together. I can't create like a mind map that looks the same. These are pretty different like,
yeah,
processes
very
here.
different angles. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty different angle. Maybe I could say this is really hard. This is effective and then ineffective here. But again, that's not possible because this doesn't make sense. This is effective. So I'd have to rearrange the mind map. You can see why it's powerful now because I'm happy to think about it.
Yeah.
But yes, for you, it's like this is what the cleanup process would be. So based on the permutations, which angle makes the most sense for the meeting that I'm about to have, or for the if you're going to do like a one-on-one chat with like a manager, you might need to represent your overall understanding of the project. So one might make more sense. But then if you're speaking to your team of data scientists and you need to make a decision as to which software you use or which representation of data you use, two
Mhm.
might be the best mind map to use because now you're trying to have an argument of like what's better and what's worse.
Yeah. It context dependent. Wow.
Yes, yeah, always context dependent, always use case dependent, and
Yeah.
depending on your needs.
Wow, that's amazing. Very powerful and very helpful.
No, I'm glad. I'm glad that you found it useful. I've noticed that we've gone slightly over time, but
Mhm.
that's all good. I just love having these chats to just get into flow.
Oh my
Any
God.
thoughts, any questions on what we talked about today and how you might apply it?
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing those insights and those techniques. Definitely, we're applying. I'm excited to applying it, and see how far it can take me. But from my understanding, it's definitely will help me getting up to speed much faster than what I'm currently doing right now. So thank
No,
you
that's
for that.
great. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Sweet. I would love for you to try this out. Please try this out. And feel free to
Mhm.
reach out as well. You're more than welcome to reach out directly to my email, or through the website as well. You can access support there. You can create a ticket.
Mm.
And yeah, take pictures of your notes. Tell me how the system goes, and we can catch up again and see how things are.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much, Tanzia. Yeah.
No worries. That's all good. Have a good night.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye
See ya.
bye.